Hello, everyone. This is Dennis Fletcher. I'm here with Sam Morgan. We're going to be doing a webinar today on the back office stuff for stock plans. A little bit of housekeeping, real quick. I asked that everybody will mute while we're doing the webinar, unless you are the one talking, just so we don't get background noises. Yes, please mute. I will go through and mute everyone. If somehow you can't find your mute button or anything like that, that's not a problem. Uh, for anybody who is, if you have a question during the process, please write it in the chat. If it's something that I think needs to be broken into, I will ask Sam at that point, and I'm sure he'll be looking at the thing as well. So that may be an issue, may not be an issue, but we will have questions and answers afterwards. However, if it's any kind of question that I think needs to be broken into, I will stop Sam and ask the question for you so we can get it answered. Also, we are recording this. This will be on Facebook, or I mean on YouTube. So that means that you will be YouTube famous for the rest of your life and farther on. If that is going to be a problem, please turn your video off. If it's not a problem, keep it on. We don't mind. Um, and and just wanted to make sure that everybody knows. So it will be on there, and by staying on, you give me permission to put it up there. Um, so that's where we're at. Other than that, I think that's everything. I think we're ready to go. We now have one other person in. That's it, Sam. Just you and me and one other person. So go ahead. It's all you.
Gotcha. So, when I talk to people about stock plans, which is all the time, because that's the thing I'm the most passionate about, it's one thing how do I get doing it? You know, how do what do I need to have in my plans? What kind of renderings do I need? Who are the publishers? And we talk about that all the time. Once you get started, that's when, it's like, okay, how do I keep track of all this stuff? And it's funny because when I've talked to people and they've said, hey, I'm getting started. Now I got to figure out all this stuff, get organized with all this. Like, well, let me show you what I did. All the things that I've done has just been 10 years of trial and error. And, you know, I wish I would have had someone to point me in a certain direction when I got started. So I'm going to share my screen, and I have two different things I wanted to show. First, how I organize the actual plans themselves. And then I have a spreadsheet where I keep track of certain things related to stock plans. And that spreadsheet seems to grow every year. Every year I get a new idea of, oh, I should be keeping track of that. For instance, just last year, I decided I get enough requests of people that want a quote to make changes to a plan. I'm like, I should probably keep track of those and see how many go from a quote to a sale. And it's not until just this last year that I know, hey, 20% of the quotes end up in a sale. So, hey, I've done 4 quotes this week. One of the next ones is going to be a sale for sure. So anyway, so that spreadsheet grows every year. So let me get my screen sharing here. So I keep all of my plans in Dropbox. I keep them all in a folder that obviously called Stockholm Plans. And then this is where all my plans are and all the paperwork related to plan sales are. And then I'll break them down. All my 1-story plans are in this Stock Rambler Plans folder. I'm assuming everybody can see. I know that's pretty small. Do I need to zoom in at all? It's pretty good. Okay. So, Rambler plans, 2-story plans, these stock plan sales forms, that's my license agreements. Once someone has purchased a plan, I save them there. If I go into there, I have every publisher's name. So, if some publisher calls me 5 years from now and says, hey, we have a problem with this one buyer, I know I got to just go to that publisher's file and I can find the document that the people signed before they were delivered their plans. Let me get back out here. I have multifamily plans. That's a newer one for me. I've had plenty of twin homes and townhomes I've done over the years. A lot of publishers don't really get into that part of it just because they don't sell many of them, but enough have expressed willingness or interest in it that I started putting renderings together of some of my townhomes and twin homes. The garage plans, that one was one that I would have never thought about. There's one publisher that has a website specific to garages and smaller projects like pool houses or gazebos, whatever. He actually called me a few years ago and asked if I had any type of garage plans that I'd be interested in selling. And I'm like, really? People buy that? And the last few years, that's been about 50% of all the plans that I sell is just garages, some garages with apartments above, pool house, whatever. So let me go into one of these and show you how I organize even further. So go into the Rambler plans folder. Those are all my plans. I organize them by name. Most of the time it's the name of the client that I originally designed it for, but sometimes I'm just coming up with a new idea for a plan and I just make up a name. If I scrolled through here, I could probably find a handful of my Facebook friends. Like, oh, I'm just going to steal their name and use it on this new stock plan. Let me find one that's been one of our really regular sellers because this will have a whole lot of information. So this one here, Dennis, this is the one I sold yesterday while we were in your AIBD meeting. So I go now into that particular plan name. I have a standard plan and a right reading reverse. People all the time are asking for a reverse set of plans. So I created a folder for the standard, what I'm marketing, and then a new folder for the reverse plan. And then of course I have all my, renderings and elevations and floor plans in this folder. Let me back up. When I go into this folder, it's broken down even further. So you can see how this could get a little crazy and a little overwhelming when you're getting started. So a lot of people will ask for different types of foundations. Where I'm in Utah, most of my plans are going to be a basement or a walkout basement or a daylight basement. But, most of the sales are in the South and the Southeast, up the Eastern Seaboard, North Carolina, South Carolina, Texas, Georgia. That's probably where I bet 2/3 of the sales end up being. So there you're doing a lot of slabs, a lot of crawl spaces. So every one of my plans, I've created a folder for all the different types of foundations that I will offer. And you can see in this particular one, one with just a slab foundation is the only one I haven't been asked to do. I had to create a crawl space. Yesterday, I created this daylight basement while Dennis and I were in a meeting. The monolithic slab, walkout basement. We do what we call in Utah walk-up basement. It's basically a full basement with an exterior set of stairs. So you can go out a door, walk up a staircase. It's got a retaining wall. So I'm offering in most of my plans up to 7 different foundation types, and then offering all of those in a right reading reverse style. So on any given plan I do, I could have up to 14 different plans. The nice thing about that is, so here's probably the downside and then the upside. Every designer that I've talked to and has gotten into this, when it happens the first time, they're pissed off, including me. The first time it happened to me, I was so mad. You tell a publisher, I want, $300 to create a crawl space from the original basement. Well, the publisher always keeps a portion of the sale as their, fee. And like, well, what the heck good is it to tell you I need $250 for that if you're going to keep half of it? That doesn't hardly cover my time until they remind you, yes, every time somebody in the future buys that crawl space or daylight basement or whatever, you still get paid. They still pay even though you already have it. So the first time you create an alternate of anything, you get a little bit of a fee, but not enough to cover your time. But then you sell it over and over and over. And this particular plan we're looking at, I've probably sold 25 or 30 times since I designed it. This is one of my builders' personal home. I designed just 3 or 4 years ago, and we've sold it over and over and over with all these different options. Like, the first time I didn't make much on the option, but every other time we sold it, that was just extra money in my pocket. So anyway, so that's the, in a nutshell, how I organize the plans. We got any questions coming up before we move on to something else? Okay.
Not at the
So,
moment.
okay. So, I mean, this is another one of those that's kind of evolved over the years, but it seems pretty straightforward to me that I needed a way. Oh, let me show one other, once I go into here a little further. It's probably going to be in this one. So after, sometimes you'll get an order where someone wants, your standard plan with a walkout basement and custom modifications. So I'll have, go into the folder for the walkout basement, and then I create a new folder. This one was modified for this buyer. That way, if I ever, have to go back to that particular client's thing, it's like, I'm not going in and messing around with a plan that was created for the masses. And then somewhere in there, I had a few extra little changes. So that's probably as far deep as I go into all the folders. One thing I found that's been a little bit of a problem lately, when I get, a folder inside a folder inside a folder inside a folder, I'll start saving the PDFs later, and it will crash, because the file name is now so long, because you've got a folder that's 5 folders deep and then the file name. And so it took a while to figure it out the first time that happened, but now sometimes I'll have to pull one of these folders out and just put it directly into Dropbox so the file name is not so long that it crashes. It's usually SoftPlan that crashes because the file names just get to be so long. So anyway, let me get
Hey,
to a
Sam.
different
Well,
screen. Yes, sir.
while you're doing that, I've got a couple questions here that they've
Okay,
posted. Um,
let's hear 'em.
Joe asked, do you design the optional foundation plans as the orders came in or when you initially designed the plan?
Now I only do them as they come in because for the most part, where most of mine are starting out as a basement, just because that's so common in Utah where I'm at, it's pretty easy to convert a basement to a crawl space or a basement to a daylight basement, whatever. The handful of them that, I did for someone that was a crawl space or a slab, and someone calls and wants a basement, like, okay, that's going to take me all day to come up with a design. And usually in that case, it doesn't happen often for me, but in that case, I'll usually let that buyer be a little bit more involved. I mean, if it's a basement and we're making a crawl space, I just make it a crawl space and send it to them. They're not involved in any decision making. But if someone's asking for a basement and they've never seen what it looks like, I'll ask their opinion of what they want. How many bedrooms should we be putting down there? Where would you like them? And then for the next buyer that asks for that plan with a basement, they just get what the original one got. And if they want to pay to customize it a little bit, they can. But one of my goals before I'm kind of semi-retired would be for every one of these folders for in every single plan to be full. That, to have every option, done, a right reading reverse of every one of those options done. So I could just sit and fulfill orders and never have to do anything other than custom modifications. But feasible as that, you know, I get excited when someone buys. I mean, it's exciting when someone buys one that's already done. It's like, hey, I get to make extra money today fulfilling an order for something I did months ago. But I also get excited when it's like, oh, I haven't done that one yet. It's now forcing me to do it. So, but yeah, I could see it. That would be something really overwhelming to someone thinking, oh, I have to have all of these. Like, no, you know, don't worry about it because in the most for the most part, most publishers are expecting you to fulfill an order within a day or two. So sometimes it might mean I got to drop everything I'm doing today because I have to create a walkout basement for this plan that doesn't have one. But it usually doesn't take but a few hours to do that if you can kind of drop what you're doing.
Um, Nick asks, do you try to host every custom plan you do as a stock plan?
I do. I've never had it come up with someone asking for me not to. I had one guy ask about it before we started, and I said, well, everything I design becomes a stock plan, but if it's, important to you, I won't sell it anywhere near you. So you can tell a publisher, look, this plan is built in Utah or wherever you may be. I'm not going to sell it here because I don't want to piss off my client that paid me way more money to design it for them, and they don't want to see it blocks down the road. So you can always, tell a publisher, restrict it. And some of them will go as far as you can restrict by zip code. If you want to say, yeah, we won't sell it in the city it was built in or the neighboring city, but anywhere else is fair game, you can get that specific.
So Nick says, how long does it take for you to repurpose a plan to go to stock?
Uh, in the beginning, it would have taken a lot longer, but now that I've been doing it so long, when I'm designing someone's house, I'm thinking about what I have to do for that to be a stock plan as I'm designing. So, for instance, if I were not doing stock plans, I wouldn't be thinking about putting mirrors in bathrooms and worrying about baseboard in every single room so it looks correct in a rendering. Because the client, how often does a client see that? You might show your custom client some renderings and say, oops, looks like I forgot baseboard here. Let me go put that in real fast. But when I'm drawing now, knowing that eventually it's going to be a stock plan, I'm thinking about those things. And as I'm drawing a vanity, I'm putting a mirror over it. So I don't have to go back and do that. Um, I don't do any kind of structural stuff on any of my plans. Everything I do goes to an engineer when it's done, and the engineer adds structural sheets at the end of my plans. So there's not much I have to do to go back to a plan and take things off, to make sure that it's fit for the masses. I have a friend in Utah that's just in the last couple of years got into stock plans, and that's one thing he has to do is go in and delete all the structural information because his engineer doesn't put them on structural sheets. They put them directly on his sheets. So he's got to go through and delete things and make sure that all of that's not on there.
So, so Joe Rommel asks, how do you show joist direction?
I show which way the joist should run, and I usually show a footing and a bearing wall, etc. Um, and it's with my custom projects, it's only rarely does an engineer come back and say, hey, that's not going to work that way, or hey, we got a better way to do that. So I think you're pretty safe to do that. I mean, stairs are almost always going to have a bearing wall along them. Um, and of course, that's one thing I have as a note on every page of my plans, as well as in the license agreement that people have to sign before they get their plans, is that these are unengineered and that if it's required where they live or going to build, that needs to be reviewed and stamped by an engineer. Mine used to say these must be reviewed and stamped by an engineer, but I kept getting calls from places like Texas where they're so loose on what they require, and a guy saying, hey, can you take that note off? My city doesn't require engineering, but because your note says it's required, they want me to go hire an engineer. So I just changed that note. So just now it says, where required by the permitting jurisdiction, these plans should be reviewed and stamped by a local structural engineer. And also a disclaimer that I assume no responsibility for beam sizes, joist sizes, footing sizes, rebar, because I'm not including any of that on the plan. So,
So, so just out of curiosity, if you wouldn't mind. So
okay.
Dave Wolf asked if your deliverables are always single page PDFs, which I highly doubt that. Or are they complete drawing sets in one PDF? Would you be able to show what a set
Sure.
going out would look like?
Bet. All right. Are you now seeing a set of plans?
No.
Okay.
You
So I
might
got to
have
share.
to click on that. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
There we
Sometimes when you do that, you have to reshare your screen.
Yes. Okay. So now you're seeing a plan.
Yep.
Okay. So my first page is always just notes. And all of these notes are word for word right out of the code book. I do that on purpose. That way, it's hard for a city guy to complain about a note when it says the exact same thing as his book. And
Yeah.
my notes that are code related always have the code reference to it as well. So no argument from a city guy. It's like, well, go look it up. My plan says exactly what your book says. Um, so notes are always first. And then I always show the foundation plan. And I can go through this slow if anybody has a question about anything as we're going. So you can see here I've shown where I'm assuming the bearing wall will be here and here, showing a footing there. I don't size the footing, but I'm showing it. And the main floor. And I can say I've seen a lot of other stock plans, and I think I probably am a little overboard, as far as what I provide, but I just provide exactly what I provide to any other client. And especially because I'm not going to go and delete seats that might be overboard. It's like, no, I'm just going to give you what I would have given anybody else. So I don't think, everybody needs all this. I mean, I've gotten stock plans from other designers that people buy and then bring to me to have make modifications. And some of them are, 5, 6 pages long. So anyway, so I always show floor framing. I used to show, so this one calls out the floor joist. But again, I would get people that would call and say, oh, well, we're going to use dimensional lumber, not TGIs. So can you take that off? Because my city guy. So I finally just started showing joists and direction and not even labeling what they are. Let the engineer worry about that. Um, on plans that are a relatively simple roof, I'll show all the roof framing. Um, I have had engineers lately asking me not to show roof framing, especially on more complicated roofs. And that's just because, there might be 2 or 3 different ways to do it. And they want their drawing to be the one people are looking at and not be confused at why is the, architectural drawing different from the engineer drawing. So on complicated roofs, it may just show, the roof outline, hips and valleys and nothing else. So, I mean, this one was fairly simple. So then I'm going to have elevations, a couple of different sheets, cross sections. Electrical is a big one that I've heard. I talk to a lot of designers around the country that tell me it's not required where I design. A friend of mine that's been trying to break into stock plans for a long time. This is one of his big holdups. He is mostly working in the Atlanta area where it's like no city requires electrical drawings here. Like, well, the publishers are going to want you to provide them. That's one of the kind of their minimum requirements. So he's like, really, I got to go and draw all those electrical plans? I'm like, well, and he's using soft plan like me and Lumion like me. And like, if you want your rendering on the inside to look real accurate, you're going to do it anyway. If you want to be able to see some lighting in there. So anyway, and then as we get to the end, I just have several sheets of just standard details. And these are the same on every single project I do. And you can see I go in on things that don't apply to that project, and I have a little symbol I put over it. This one's not used. So obviously there's no cantilever on this project. There's no bay window on this project. So rather than delete them, and that's another one I've had questions about. I've even had city guys asked to be removed. And my answer is like, okay, what if they decide to do a cantilever later? Is there anything preventing them from, making that 1 bedroom 2 feet bigger? No. Well, that's why I leave that there. It's still readable. If they decide to do it, the detail is there. They can follow, how to do it. Anyway, so and Dennis, you and I had these discussions recently that, most of these details are either taken right off a manufacturer's website. A lot of them are soft plans, standard details that I've just gone in and modified and tweaked a little bit. And a ton of them, especially this sheet, probably mostly are from the U.S. Department of Energy. I mean, the window and door details are from Tyvek, but a lot of these insulation details are off the Department of Energy's website. Why sit and recreate a whole bunch of details when you can find them online all over the place for free or for really cheap? or just call one of your buddies and say, hey, do you got a detail for this? I don't know how many times I've called, some of my colleagues around the country and like, hey, I don't normally do this, but you do. You got a detail for that? So anyway, so that would be a typical plan set for me.
That's really good. I know that. So I know that we're supposed to be going over how you organize, but there's
Right?
some pretty big questions here
Let's hear them.
based off of it. Nick wants to know, and actually, Nick, I'm going to ask you to unmute if you're still in, um, and ask your question because I'm not sure I understand what you're talking about with the contract.
That was a while back.
Yeah.
Several minutes ago, you were talking about somebody signing a contract, like before you give them the plan. Is that what you do?
Yes, let's show you one of those.
Because that's a
So,
problem I've had is people coming back and it's like the publisher has misrepresented what they're getting or what their expectations are, and we have to fine tune that.
right. So now these all started, and Dennis, I think you have these somewhere in the residential design group, right?
I might. They might be under guides. I might have to go through the guides and reorganize some things.
Right.
But I
So
believe that we have this. Yeah.
these documents were produced by an attorney, or there used to be I don't know what you call it, kind of a sub association under AIBD years and years ago. It was called the House Plan Marketing Association. It no longer exists. And so when we got talking about these, I didn't want to share them with anybody because they weren't mine. I didn't pay to produce them, but we got permission from AIBD to share these since they're like, yeah, the HPMA doesn't even exist anymore. So it's not really anyone's intellectual property. So, so we can share these with anybody that wants them. I've tweaked these a little bit. So it used to just be the top few paragraphs was what was produced by this attorney years ago. I added the last paragraph of architectural plans only. I want people before they receive their plans to understand you are not getting any structural details. You will need whether it's, a licensed engineer or your lumber yard, because I know in some parts of the country that's pretty common where you just take the plans of the lumber yard and they'll size beams and whatever for you. But I had enough people that, not very often, but because I think most people understand what they're getting when they buy a stock plan, and most publishers have it right in their frequently asked questions of, what's included. And most of them say, you may need an engineer stamp, you may need an architect stamp. And there are a few places in the country that require an architect stamp even for residential. So if people had read everything before they made a purchase, they should know this. But I added that so I have their signature saying that they understand that they're getting, architectural design only, no footing sizes, no rebar, that would need to be handled by someone else. And any of us could probably do it, but what's the proper design for Salt Lake City is probably not the same in Albuquerque or Bismarck. So, and you're not making enough money to go through every single plan for every buyer and update the structural, even if you're qualified to do it. And there's just not enough money to spend the time going through and saying, oh, this one needs a 24-inch footing, not a 20-inch footing. And, I wouldn't do that for the few $100 you make.
Right.
So, but
Okay,
anyway,
thanks.
we
Yeah.
can share these. We have, there's several different formats. There's, PDF. There's one for PDF. There's one for printed sets. There's one for CAD files. And then of all of them, we have them, if you're offering a single use to it or multi-use. Most people, when you're selling, are going to offer both. So the most common purchase for me, at least, is a single use PDF. But I do get people, especially if it's a builder, buying a plan will buy a PDF unlimited use or a CAD unlimited use, because they're going to build it a handful of times. And of course, you charge more money for that. You get to set the pricing that you're charging for the plans. So you just jack them up a few $100s. that answer that question good enough?
Yes,
Uh,
thank you. I appreciate that. It was, and what I found is people, you know, generally speaking, breeze through the fine print. And so this would be
Right,
really helpful. Yeah, this would be very
right.
helpful.
But I had this discussion about this exact thing a few days ago with two of my colleagues in Utah, and both of these guys, have been just in the last couple of years getting into stock plans, as I've been telling them about how I've been doing it. And we were just discussing offering unlimited licenses versus not. And one guy was like, well, I'd rather just do a single use and then make them come back and pay me a reuse. Like, how many people do you think are really going to do that? By offering an unlimited use and charging more, you're just keeping the honest people honest. The dishonest guy is going to buy the cheapest single use he can get and just go use it over and over and over. He's never going to call you and pay you more money. So I would rather just have an option for the guy that wants to be honest, pay a little bit more, and then he can build it over and over again. So
Agreed.
anyway, any other questions before we get on to?
Actually, we have quite a few.
Okay, let's hit them.
Yeah. So Fred asked if you release drawings for use by the customer's engineer. In other words, if the customer's engineer needs CAD files, I'm assuming, or something like that, would you release something like that to them, to the
You
engineer?
know, um, my answer is kind of it depends, and it depends on their attitude. You know, now if no, seriously, I mean, the person that's just been so easy to work with and nice, absolutely, I'm going to help out, especially if they send a PDF, or even, occasionally people just buy prints. I don't sell many prints, but I do. um, if they take those down to their local engineer and he calls me, absolutely, I'm sending him right what he needs, because I figure that's one professional helping another to do his job easier. But some people, you know, especially the ones that you've just worked with a week or two of changes and they've just been a pain. When they call and say, hey, my engineer says he needs CAD files. Well, I'd be happy to upgrade you to the CAD set and I look on my spreadsheet and tell them how much money that's going to be. That doesn't happen very often, because most people are really pretty easy to work with. You know, but like I said, always if the engineer calls me directly and say, hey, this guy brought me a set of your plans, and would you mind sharing at least the floor plans with me in CAD file? Absolutely, man. Happy to help you out. So I just figured that's going to come back to me someday when I
Yeah.
need something. Someone's going to help me. So, okay, what's next?
Uh, so John Smith is asking, he says, I assume you showed joist spacing at 16 on center.
That would be typical unless I'm designing it with a floor truss. And then I like to design a floor truss at 19.2 inches on center. Even though the truss guys will tell you all day long it can do 24-inch on center, but anybody that's walked across 3/4 inch sheeting at 24-inch on center knows how much, your armoire rattles when you walk past it. So I'll usually specify 19.2 when it's a floor truss, which I use quite frequently, in big houses with long spans.
Okay. So, where'd it go? Uh, Joe asks, why don't you show grade lines? I'm assuming on the elevation
Right?
plans. He wants to know why you don't show grade lines.
I don't know what the grades are going to be. I mean, unless I had someone sending me a topo of their property, I would have no clue what it's going to be. So, and I'd rather not guess.
So I'm assuming that that creates the question of the difference between custom and stock plans. Is one, as a custom, I know my contract. I'm sorry, I know my client and I know the conditions.
Right,
With stock plans, you don't know the conditions. It could
right,
be it could be a mountainside. It could be the beach. You don't know. Um,
right.
and uh, and I would assume that you probably don't show steps. You probably just show that this is where steps go. Uh,
I like steps out of a door.
yeah, like so off of
Yeah,
a porch or something, you might show that this is where steps go, or maybe you show three risers or something like that to show
right.
that it's steps. but it's known that the steps are going to be, or do you have a note that says these steps, they have to meet code and whatever or anything like
Yeah,
that?
that would be covered in my general notes
Okay.
on egress requirements, and I will usually show steps on the plan, but those are there purely so the renderings look nice, so you're
Sure.
actually stepping down to a patio or whatever. So yeah, they're not meant to be accurate by any means. I mean, I may show 3 risers down to a patio, and when they build it, there might be 9, because it's
Right.
enough slope. So yeah, not meant to be 100% accurate on those kind of things for sure. When you said showing steps, my first thought was like in a daylight basement or a walkout
Okay.
basement. Those are going to be a guess as well.
Mm-hmm.
I'll show that there's a step in the foundation with a framed wall on top of it, and then there'll be a great big note that says, adjust location and height of steps, to meet the local conditions or however I have that worded. Because again, I know nothing about their property, and
Right.
I'm assuming that they're hiring a professional builder that says, yeah, don't worry about it, I got this for you. So,
Yeah. I have a walkout basement that I'm gonna have to get with you on because I don't do walkout basements. Because over
right.
here we barely do basements to begin with, but I have one site condition, and so I'm gonna need to talk to you about how you do those because you do them all the time.
Yes. And what I can show you if we had, I think we talked about this about soft plans feature to pull in the topography from Google Earth.
Yeah, I have to
We'll,
get with you on
we'll
that too
work on
because
that.
I still can't seem to get that to work. So, um,
It's easy once you've done it a time or two. Anyway,
sure. So David asks, do you ever actually work with the engineer on a project and apply those engineering markups and stamp to your drawings?
well, I work with engineers on every project when it's one of my local clients. I mean,
Hmm.
that's required in Utah. You won't get past the girl at the counter if you don't have an engineer stamp on every project. So that's the nice thing is most of the engineers in Utah will review your plans, add all their details to their own sheets, and then just reference, this detail is on sheet 13 of architectural. So the engineers never actually add anything to my plans. So when I take a plan um, and it becomes a stock plan, I'm just not including all the engineers' information in there because it may not apply and it's not mine to give out.
That
So
makes sense. Um, Mark says, have you had anybody give you pushback for using the word architectural on that contract?
no, nobody's asked about that.
And
So
actually, I,
because
I I will say something to that. I know that using the term architectural as a designer is kind of a no-no because in most states it's not a term you can use. But when it comes to a contract, that's actually the term used for those plans. There's a difference. You're not saying that you're doing architectural work. You're saying the name of those plans. This is what it's called. They're the architectural section of the plans. Um,
yes,
and I
that's
think
what I
there's a
was going
big
to say.
difference. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
If
sorry.
I was referring to myself in some way,
Hmm.
yes, that's a problem. But when you're referring, you are receiving architectural plans. Yes, I think that's where the distinction lies. I did get years and years ago. This is a little side story. Um, I used to have on my business card that we provided 3D architectural renderings. And I was in Atlanta in the hotel, of course, like I am now, watching the opening ceremonies of the Olympics when Mr. Bean was playing the piano. I still remember sitting here watching him on the big screen in the hotel when I get a phone call from a state investigator with someone filing a complaint against me because I used the word architectural on my business card. So, yep, that was a problem then, but I think in this instance, probably not since we're referring to the plan and not to me.
Right. And I think that it's generally known, whether you're an architect, designer, or drafter, that set is an architectural set. It doesn't matter who did it. It's still considered an architectural set. Even at the permit office, there's no distinguishing uh, what set that is as opposed to who did it. So that's
Right.
the cool part.
I'm assuming that most states have similar laws as Utah when it comes to exemption from licensure.
Hmm.
And one of the things in Utah is that any designer must notify the client that he's not an architect. And so that's the very first thing that my contract states is the designer is not an engineer or an architect, but can under Utah law design certain structures. And that was all things that my engineer or my attorney said that has to be in there. Very
Hmm.
first thing you tell people. So anyway,
Yeah, I had to do the same thing. um, so John says, I'd rather not be a print shop. Would it be limiting my sales to offer PDF only?
I know a lot of guys that do that. I haven't yet just because I have a plotter in my office and have the entire time I've been in business. So I don't want to lose out on a sale. Now, one thing I did just 2 years ago, I think we started offering, well, first thing was for years, print sets were the cheapest way to buy, right? So when I first started, the prints was the cheapest version and then a PDF and then a PDF with an unlimited license. Several publishers kept telling me you need to jack up the prices of prints. It's not free for you to produce, so it shouldn't be your cheapest way to do it, even though historically that was how it had been. So, we raised up the price of printed plans so they're, almost as much as a CAD set. And we also started offering um, a package where you get a PDF and prints for even a little bit more. So it's about the same as paying for the PDF unlimited version a couple $100 extra and they get a 5 sets of prints. And I get enough sales of those that it's worth offering still, but you don't have to. And matter of fact, the two guys in Utah that have started doing stock plans that I've and they have started, neither of them offer any prints because they've said the same thing. I don't want a plotter and I'm not going to go pay $4 a sheet to print for somebody. So you don't have to. You will lose out on a few sales. And I wonder how many I would lose out if I didn't. I mean, if someone really loves that plan, they're going to figure out a way to get prints if they need it. I figure most of the people that buy prints either just assume they need them because that's how it's always been done, or they they live somewhere that's so remote or rural that like, where am I going to get prints made like that?
Right.
We don't even have a Kinko's. So
Well, and I will
anyway,
say, I don't own a plotter. I own a large format printer. I can do 11 by 17. That's the biggest I do.
right,
Print wise, those are my check sets. If somebody wants prints, I literally have an online place that I spend. I think I'm gonna say a little over $1 a page after a certain point. Which, when you look at the fact that my plan sets are generally 13 to 18 pages, um, they will literally and if I send 3 copies, well, I've well over their free shipping, and I can just put in their address and have it shipped to them. I don't even see them,
right,
so I don't even have to spend a lot of money on a plotter, which is great because my office isn't big enough. I couldn't put a plotter in here to save my life right now.
right.
I can barely turn around, so
Well, when we get to my spreadsheet where I track things, we could look really quickly and see how many print sets have I sold so far this year. And
right,
it's like it's going to there's enough there that it's worth the money. But if you don't really want to or you don't have the ability to, I don't think you're losing out on much because it's not a big number of sales. Most people are buying PDFs.
right. So everybody is talking about the architectural drawing term. I would say that use whatever is comfortable and check your local codes and local laws to make sure it's not illegal for you to use it. If you have to call it a construction document or something like that, or contract documents or residential design documents, whatever. I think the point is you can do that. And honestly, I just don't think that there's an issue between with that for the simple fact that it's a term that's widely known for the documents themselves. It's
Right.
not somebody calling themselves an architect. Anyway, that's all the questions for that. So let's go ahead to your next set with your
All right.
spreadsheet.
Right. Okay, let me share again. Okay, now this is the document that just keeps growing every year. So my spreadsheet, and this is what I started with. This, when I first started, was just this one tab where I track every project, every plan that's a stock plan. You notice here I've got 2501 to 3000 square feet. When I first started, what I did is I went and picked 20, 30 plans at random from different websites, took the square footage, divided with the price, and came up with an average price per square foot that plans were selling for. And then I just went and put a price to each one of my plans. Problem with that is they were just random all over the place. So every plan had a unique price. And that was a real issue for publishers, especially when you come back, every year they give you the option to raise prices or change prices if you want to. So several of them, after doing that for a year or two, said, it would be so much easier if you would lump all your plans together into ranges. And it was one of the publishers that said, let's see, what's the one above here? 2000 to 2500. So we're every 500 square feet. So they said, lump all the plans together that are similar square footage and price those the same. So any of my plans that are between 2000 and 2500 square feet are the same exact price. And again, I was several years into this process before I went and revamped all of this. Across the top, I have all the specifications, bedrooms, full bath, 3/4 bath, half bath, square footages, width and depth. These are all the kind of things that publishers are going to want to see, when you submit a plan. So why not have it all readily available instead of having to look up the plan every time? This spreadsheet has been very helpful when someone calls me and says, hey, do you have anything that's, 2,200 square feet with a 3-car side entry garage, blah, 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 blah. And I can just go through here and quickly search and say, yep, I've got that. It's this many feet wide, this many feet deep. Will that fit your lot? So it's taken a long time to figure out what information, like right here is a new category I just added this year, a few months ago. I get enough calls from publishers saying, matter of fact, the sale that came in yesterday, Dennis, while we were on our meeting, just before that meeting, I got an email from the publisher. This guy says this plan is perfect, but he needs an 18x8 and a 10x8 garage door. What's it going to cost to do that? I pulled up the spreadsheet and said, that's exactly what this plan already has. 30 minutes later, order came in. So, it was nice. I get enough of those questions from publishers of, hey, what's the garage door size on this? So I finally added that to my spreadsheet just this year. So it's easy at a glance to go look at it instead of pulling up the plan every time the question comes up. So this spreadsheet goes on and on and on and on. So you can see, I'm offering a PDF single use, PDF unlimited use, 5 sets, PDF plus 5 sets. I used to just send a CAD if they were ordering CAD, but I finally started saying, now I'm going to send the CAD plus the PDF since I already have them, and they could make that PDF as easy as I could. But this is just a customer service thing that if they order CAD, they're getting a PDF as well. I just charge a flat fee to do a right reading reverse plan. I have a flat fee for if they want an alternate foundation, a flat fee if they're going to do a, convert from a 2x6 wall to a 2x4 wall. Where I'm in the mountains, the Rocky Mountains, almost everything is 2x6. So I get plenty of requests for this. Another new one that I've just started adding, which is why these are so empty, at one of the publisher's suggestions, because most of my plans are three car or bigger. The most common plan, kind of the sweet spot for plan sales is a 2-car garage. So I had publishers saying, how hard would it be to go and create a version, that just shows a 2-car front entry or side entry as an option. So we can just tell people, hey, it's this much money if you want to make that 3-car a 2-car. So that's something I'm currently working on. And of course, them to market them, I have to go and create a new floor plan with that change so they can show people. Let's keep zipping over here. So then I have, what's the roof pitch? We mostly truss roofs in Utah, so most of mine are designed that way. And again, most of this stuff is stuff that publishers want to see so they can put it on their websites. I have what my standard foundations are and all the ceiling heights. So when I, add a new plan, that's one of the first things I do. Come in here, add it to my spreadsheet. So then when I send it to a publisher, I just have all that info readily available. This would apply just to houses. Then I have a similar tab for garages, another tab for all my multifamily. And then here's the one where I track all the sales. So I track the client's name, address, their email, phone number. So all the information that the publishers are sending to me, I'm tracking. I track which publisher provided that sale. So every year I can go and see, who's the top selling ones. I track what type they bought. And this is really helpful when that guy calls and says, hey, I need a CAD file. I can go through and look at his sale and say, yeah, but you only paid for a PDF, so might be a little more money. I track here if they paid to have an optional foundation. And then I track the date of the order, the date that I sent the license to them, the date I received the license back from them, and then the date that I fulfilled the order. And then lastly, I'm tracking what the amount the publishers are paying me. And then I track the date that I received their payment, because there's been a couple of times where I'm looking back over this and saying, hey, that's 3 months old and I haven't been paid. And a couple of times I've called the publishers and they're like, we show record of sending you that check on this date. And they nicely canceled the check and resent one, because there's been more than once that a payment was lost in the mail. Most of the publishers are now doing an electronic payment. So checks coming in the mail is only with a couple of them. But you know what, let's look here. Since we had questions on prints, I'm gonna see if I can zoom in. So, okay, so it looks like on the 20th, I sold something with prints. And then we got to zoom back up into February before I sold again with prints. And then there's another one in January. So what is that? 6 or 7 so far this year with prints out of 30 some sales, or however many this is. So prints is not a big one, but if you have the ability to offer it, it probably doesn't hurt to offer it. But if you don't want to, you don't have to. Here's another one that has kind of grown. This is where I track which plans are sent to the publishers. So I got all the publishers I work with across the top, and then plan name goes in here when I send it to them, and then I highlight it in yellow when they put it live on their site. So you can see these first few groups of publishers are really on top of things. They got yellow everywhere. You get over here, it's like, all right, they either haven't got it on their site, so they're not on top of it, or they haven't told me. So like Hanley, America's Best, and Architectural Designs, I can log right into my account on their website and I can see what's online. These other guys, they don't have that ability, and hopefully they will at some point. So I would have to physically go through and search all their plans on their site, find one of mine and say, yep, that one's live. Or what I typically do is about twice a year, I send an email and saying, hey, can you give me an updated list of all my plans that are live so I can go highlight things? But yeah, I'd love for some of these other guys to get more of my plans live, because I kind of have the opinion that the more that's out there, the more chances something's going to sell. Dennis, we got any questions yet on this before I zoom through all of these?
My questions that, whoops, the questions that are coming up are actually, so Fred has asked about your CAD set.
Okay.
He says, when you send CAD, is it in the sheet or just the plan? And also, do you flatten the CAD into one layer or not?
I send the full sheet, so they have my title sheet and everything and all the notes. And no, I don't do anything. I don't explode anything or flatten anything. I just send it to them. So
And then he says the most important question of all: how are you deciding on the plan's name? Which you had mentioned earlier, but if you could let him know, I think you might have
right,
missed that.
most of the plan names are the names of the original client. But then, if it's a plan that I'm coming up with, um, I just make up a name. Like the last 2 years, I've got two plans that have been my top sellers, like number one and number two every year. One of them is named after my wife. One of them is named after one of my granddaughters. And my granddaughter really gives it to my wife when, oh, Grandpa told me my plan sold more than yours did this year. So I give a plan name, but the publishers won't use these names at all. So this is really just for you to keep track of your plans. Publishers are going to give you a unique identifying number or letter on their website. Like, for example, if anybody went to America's Best House Plans and go to where you can search all their plans, if you type in 2802, that's my unique number. That will bring up every plan of mine that's on America's Best House Plans. If you went to architectural designs, same thing. Put in the search field, typed in UT. How they came up with UT as my unique number as being from Utah, I'll never figure out. But that'll bring up all my plans. So none of these names are really mean anything other than to you. And when you get an order from a publisher, it'll have their number and your name, whatever name you gave it. And it doesn't have to be a name. You could give it a numeric number, just however you want to keep track of it. So when I get an order, I'll get an order that says, the Antonio plan 2802-00037. So it identifies it by their number and mine, so I know which one it is, and I don't have to keep track of all of their numbers. One thing that I started doing with the license agreements when I send those out is I put my plan name on there where the field is for plan name, and I add, this is just recent, in the last year or two, I add the publisher's ID number from whoever they bought from, because I've realized that some people would read that. They actually read what they're going to sign and say, well, I don't know what an Antonio plan is. I ordered plan number. So I put both of those on there. Any other questions, Dennis?
Um, no, Jordan does say that he believes there's still a couple of publishers that use your plan name, but he just said that
There
as an
is,
FYI.
yeah, there is. Matter of fact, Rick, who you've talked to, you can have them. They will if you want them to use it, or they won't if you tell them not to.
Okay.
So they may be the only one that I'm familiar with. That's the house plan company based out of Oregon. I think they do. I think they will use your plan name. Okay, so next tab, this is where I'm keeping track of those modifications. And this was just something I started doing last year, so I can, determine if someone, requested a modification, how much it was for, when it was for, and then I just put, yep, they did make a purchase. And so I go through every week when I get purchases and look to see if that was one I quoted. Most of these, if I quote a modification, they're making the purchase either within a day or so, or they just disappear and you never hear anything from them again. But one of these from just a few days ago was, I quoted months ago, and then they finally made the order. That's a little unusual. So let's see, that one really is just for me, and it has nothing to do with much, but this is another new one they added where I showed everybody earlier how I have all the different foundation options and everything. This is where I'm tracking what I have. So you can see on this plan here, the Caroline plan, full basement is my standard, and I've created a full basement with a 2x6 wall modification. I've created a crawl space. I've created a stem wall with a slab. I've created a mono slab, and that's just for me. So if I need to quickly go and look, someone's ordered this, do I already have it? I find most of the time I just go to the plan in my Dropbox folder and see if I have it, but I wanted to add this so I could my goal eventually is to have all of these filled in with an X. So I just have every one of them done and ready to go if someone orders it.
Now, just out of curiosity, Sam, is this a Excel file or is this like up on Google and a Sheets file? I
Oh,
guess
it's
it could
Excel.
didn't matter. I was just thinking. I know that you work from all over the place, but if you're somewhere and you don't have your laptop, I know that I know the nice part about Sheets is I can get on Google on my phone and look up information if I needed it. I didn't know if that was something you have to worry about or not.
No,
Being
because
a
I
being a
host,
world
it's all on
traveler.
Dropbox.
Okay,
It's all on Dropbox, so I can access it anywhere.
that
Um,
makes sense.
now when we travel, which is very frequently, I always have my laptop, and but I keep telling my wife one of these days we're going to buy, or maybe when I upgrade my laptop next time, I'm going to take the old one and leave it in Spain at her brother's house, so I don't have to carry a computer with me every time we travel to go visit her family. So so that's all I had. I mean, that's in a nutshell how I keep track of all my stuff. So, when orders come in, it's easy to take care of everything. I imagine there may be other questions, or maybe I'd love if people have other suggestions. What things am I not thinking about that I ought to be?
Well, Fred actually asked a pretty good question there. Um, have you considered setting a database up like an Access to do the same as your Excel workbook?
Um, I haven't, and that's only because when I had to take a class in college about that, Access was the one part of the Microsoft suite that I failed. So,
That would make sense.
right. So, and my stepson is kind of a wizard at Excel, at most Microsoft stuff. He's a computer programmer, so you can see I have this tab here called drop down lists. That's where all of these items are, all the publishers' names. So when I go to a planned sale, I can click right there and pick, 5 sets, PDF, single, CAD, single, so I have all these things set up with templates, so it's pretty easy to do. But no, I haven't. And again, because Access was that one thing that I just could not ever wrap my head around.
I understand. Um, John Smith asks if you would mind sharing some specs on your current laptop. And I was just thinking that that might be something you would be great for you to do as a post in your stock plans group, as
Right?
well as in the residential design group. I think you did it once in the residential design group as a reply to somebody, but
Right.
a lot of, I mean, I know a lot of us. We're always looking for, my gosh, mine's okay, but geez, it seems like I could do better. Um, so knowing those specs might be a pretty cool thing.
I
You keep
didn't even
coming
know
up
what
with
I
some
wanted.
black.
What's that?
um, yeah, every time you pull something up, it comes up with a black spot on the
Sorry.
on my computer. I don't know
Right.
if everybody else is seeing it, but yeah, like that.
So yeah, that discussion came up a while ago because I think someone was asking about using Lumion
Yeah,
uh, on a laptop, and I always invest in a pretty high end laptop because I travel so much. I have to be able to use all of my software, and so I'm currently using an HP Omen laptop that's got a RTX 3060, I think is what's in here, and
right.
um, I usually, I try and get one that's got a terabyte or so hard drive, even though most of my stuff is stored on Dropbox or OneDrive, but I don't want to have to upgrade because I have too much crap on the computer.
I get
So
that. Um, Joe asks a pretty good question. What happens if you're late with deliverables? Say you haven't quite got the plan finished. The publishers get upset.
I've never had anybody complain. I mean, of course, I'm usually, pretty on top of things. Or if you're, I mean, if it's a pretty standard plan, you should be able to get that out, within a day or two. And I've never had anybody call and say, hey, this client's complaining. But of course, I'm in communication with the client. So if I'm going to be a little delayed, I'll tell the guy, hey, I'm out of the office today. I'll have that to you tomorrow. Um, if you're doing modifications, that's one of the other things they always ask you in, besides a quote, is a time frame. And most of them are simple enough that I'm telling them, 3 to 5 days, 5 to 7 days, whatever. I'm doing one right now that, matter of fact, I just heard from the client a few hours ago that they're good with all the changes I've made. That they came up with such a list of changes that this will be a new stock plan when we're done. Won't be it hardly resembles the original plan anymore. And so it was a fairly fat fee for all the changes. And I told them minimum of 30 days. We're only into it. We're probably 2.5 weeks right now, and I'll probably finish it today, tomorrow. Um, and it was great that I'm glad I said that long, because they placed the order and then left the next day on a 30-day cruise. So I hear from them every 4 or 5 days. And so I'm glad for my sake that I said 30 days, because they have been the problem with communicating. I could have been done already if they were answering me a few hours later when I have a question, but um, and maybe that's why they went on a cruise, because I told them up front 30 days. So um, but yeah, I haven't had any complaints from publishers. I have one right now that I need to actually call the publisher and explain what's going on, because it should be done, but this guy asked for very specific modifications. Those were done in the first day, and now he keeps coming back with new things. And when I tell him that's going to cost more money, he's kind of like, why? Like, well, because that has nothing to do with what you asked for and were quoted. So if you want more, you're going to pay more. So he's being really slow to answer and non-committal. So I got to call the publisher and just say, hey, what do you want me to do? They'll
Right.
probably say, my guess is they'll say, fulfill the original order. So we're out of it. And then you work with them on whatever you feel like working with them on. So I think as long as they can say, hey, he gave you what you ordered through us, anything else is between you and him.
Yeah, that makes sense. So Robert Kloeb has actually a pretty good uh thought here.
Oh, I'll answer him offline.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm just kidding.
Okay.
Hi, Robert.
Um,
Love you.
so he says for projects that don't need changes, why not have them as an online PDF that customers can download immediately? They get an automatic link when they pay, then you have no interaction or delays.
That is actually already offered by one publisher that I know of. And stay tuned. Dennis is working on a webinar with those guys. Um, and I know one of the other ones is actually working on a similar type of thing. And it's really what they want to do is speed things up, because people will place an order directly with the publisher. And then from then on, all other communication is coming from someone they don't know, coming from me. And I can't count how many times I've been waiting on a license to be signed, and it's in someone's spam folder. When I send out that email for a signature, I also send a text, because I assume most of the phone numbers that come with the order is a cell phone. So I always send a text that says, hey, be on the lookout for an email. There's a document that needs to be signed. But anyway, because that's enough of a problem, I guess one of the publishers recently told me they're working on a thing where an order will come in. I will receive notification that the order has been placed. Then I would upload the plan into my account with the license agreement. And as soon as they sign the license agreement, they can download the PDF or the CAD files or whatever. I hope that becomes more normal, because that would sure simplify things. But and the technology's there, just the publishers haven't all implemented it yet.
Right.
Um, I can't remember for sure, but I think the one that does offer that actually offers a little bit higher commission if you do that, if you choose to do that with them, just because it's so much easier.
Oh, that makes sense.
So, but I haven't done that with them yet. But I want to ask him when we do that webinar with him. That's one thing I want him to address, because I want to learn more about it.
Hmm. So Fred Blum looks like he's volunteering to help you with your Excel sheet. He says in Excel, you could dump most info into a single tab and use pivot tables to extract the info, which you can do a lot with Excel. Um, I think that you and Fred need to have a conversation, in Messenger, Maybe he can.
I won't tell you the grade that I got on the assignment on pivot tables when I was in college either.
Was it close to access?
Probably. That was another, when I need stuff like that, I go to my stepson and say, hey, David, program this.
There you go.
So, I mean, most of these things that are in here are all things that he programmed, like, for instance, here, when we click on this, oh, it's not going to do it. Oh, maybe we don't have that in this spreadsheet. Anyway, one of my spreadsheets, he has it set up where when I click on the date, an actual calendar pops up. So I just click on the day that we're at, but that must be
There
the
you
other
go.
spreadsheet he's created for me.
Those are
So
nice.
anyway,
Um, Joe says, do you not send the PDFs to them? How do they download the files? Uh, so Joe wants to know how you send the files, so that he understands. He also asked, do they ask for a modification quote before they purchase the plan? Sorry, people are asking questions and it keeps moving on me. So
right. So I send everything just by email as an attachment. Occasionally the attachments are so large that they won't attach and I have to send them, through a link, and that's pretty easy through Dropbox. Matter of fact, the way I have Dropbox set up, if it's too large, it'll automatically create the link when I send it. So, but most of them are just an attachment, sometimes in a zip folder. Um, uh, Yesterday I had a sale and this was driving me a little nutty. The guy kept trying to say that everything was so compressed you couldn't see anything, and he's like, do I have to print out this sheet and then go cut out each page? And my first page that I showed you is all notes, and each of those notes will say, if this applies to a certain page, it'll say plumbing notes,
Mhm.
see page 3, whatever. And it's like, okay, on page 3, that's where these notes all apply to. He thought that meant that was each page of the plan. And it was all because he didn't realize that, my guess is an older gentleman and didn't realize it was a multi-page PDF. So he's sending me screenshots like, I can't read any of this. And I finally sent him a screenshot of the little arrow to click between pages. And I said, does this help? And, after about 20 emails back and forth yesterday, he's like, oh, thank you. Now I can see the rest of the plan.
Yeah.
So,
Well, that
so
also,
sometimes technology is not our friend.
yeah, that can also sometimes ensure that you have a new friend for life because next time he has an issue, he might ask you.
Right, right.
um, Fred also asks if you sell your stock plans via your own website, which I think you've answered that in the past.
Yes, I mean we do have a fully e-commerce functional website. Without spending a ton of money, we just don't get traffic there at all. So the only plans we sell directly is usually when we're working with some of our local builders. They get a new client that wants something, and almost all of them say, "Oh, you should go look at his website first. You might find something on his website that is close to what you want." So the handful a year that we sell directly on our website is usually from that, and most of the time it's a plan that they'll buy with making modifications to customize it. Um, I think I posted about this a few months ago. I'd been waiting for years for this to happen. One of my builders referred his electrician to me who wants to build a new house, and he said, oh, we found this plan online that's almost perfect. It just needs a bunch of modifications to be right. And I said, well, let me look at it and see. And when he sent it, it was one of mine. He found on one of the publisher sites one of my plans. And so, of course, I said, well, you can buy that directly through me and I'll make all your modifications. If you'd wanted that plan with modifications, I'd make you go buy it from them and then I'd charge you to redo it, but I'm not going to just copy someone else's stuff. So,
Right.
but it took 10 years, but finally somebody found one of my plans on a publisher's website and came directly to me.
So, Fred told you how to Google search access and pivot tables, just so that you know. Uh, the
I know enough about it to know I don't want to mess with
There you
it.
go.
What I'm showing you works great for me. I
There
know
he
it's old
is.
school. This is old school Excel, but I'm 53 years old, so I'll stick
Hey,
with what
you and
I
I are
know.
same age. uh, John Smith says the technology stack is a term he's been hearing lately, organizing a robust single source location for publishers and designers and customers to accomplish all steps in the sales transaction. A new one in the realtor industry is called Rechat. Okay. Um, I'm assuming that that had something to do with what we were talking about. Unfortunately, this
Oh, with
53
being
year
able to
old brain,
download plans and
yeah, this 53-year-old brain just got boggled by that one. Sorry about that. But the nice
yeah.
part is it's now on the video, so later we can go back and look at it.
Well, I would love that when people can make their order, and this would only really apply to the orders that didn't have modifications, but someone could order a plan, usually things like a right reading reverse and a crawl space and 2x4 walls instead of 2x6 are all just pull down menus. So someone could order all those things. It would be great that they could order it. The license agreement is generated and says, your order will be fulfilled after this is received. And then I can go and upload the plan and they immediately download it. I hope
Sure.
for that day because that would sure make my life easier.
Yeah. It's funny is I've seen that sort of thing in other avenues and in other stuff, so I know it's doable. I know that pull down menus with what's there. I think the problem is uh, putting in putting in what you have. Like, so if you have a plan that's got 12 things already, it's got, you know, all the foundations, it's got all the foundations as a read whatever you call that. You know what I'm saying? With all the different modifications, maybe you got 14 different modifications on 17 out of your 500 plans. You know,
Right.
they have to input all that. And that might be what's taking a while, unless there's a way for you when you go to send it up, if you get one. Let's say you have a plan that's got the standard basement, and you put in a crawl space and a rewrite. Um, so you add those two to it, and it automatically does a drop down. I think that's the
Right.
thing that would be cool.
Yep. I think we'll get there. It really, it's a matter of publishers being willing to invest that much money in programming when right now they can just make me do it all, or
Yeah.
make you do it all. But, I think we'll get there.
And I really appreciate this, Sam. This has been great. We're actually at wow, almost an hour and a half. And
Yeah.
you didn't think it was gonna go, but we've maintained well over 20 people the entire
Yeah. Well,
time.
very good.
So
And you know what? I always say anybody's welcome to reach out to me directly. I mean, I can't count how many people from both our groups have called me and asked questions, and I'm happy to because I love this stuff.
well, I was gonna
So I
say
love talking about this.
I imagine with all the people messaging you that that you sometimes you're like, okay, I need to ignore the messages for a little while so I get some work done. And then
Right.
I'll come back to them. I know I get that same thing from the group every once in a while. There's days where I'll get several people messaging me, and I have to kind of put them to the side to be able to get some work done, and then I'll answer them later. So yeah, I get that. Um, and Joe, you're very welcome. Uh, yes, Sam is an inspiration. Just knowing that he's killing it with the stock plans and that it's actually doable uh, makes it good. Um, and I really appreciate you doing this, Sam. This is a great one. Uh, any other questions from anybody? You could even unmute yourself and ask it at this point. If not, if there's anything else that you wanted to share, Sam.
You may have saw I posted the other day that I got a call out of the blue from a guy in Texas that has been doing this for decades. I mean, he started doing online, well, not online plans, but magazines and catalogs.
Right.
And as we were finishing up our conversation, he said, "Hey, don't be afraid of an $800,000 a year. I've had them."
Wow.
Oh, okay. I'm not afraid of that. I'm
I
afraid of
was
all the
gonna
work
say.
that comes along with it because when you figure the my average royalty rate is about $500, when you're looking at all the different plans. And so 800,000, that's what, 1,600 plans you got to order, fulfill orders in a year.
That's when you hire
I don't know
somebody
that
to
I want to
help.
do that. So yeah, I might have to hire someone at that point.
Yeah, yeah, that would be great though. Well, if there's no other questions and if you don't have anything else to share, I
Okay.
guess we could probably end this. I want to again, I want to thank you, Sam. I want to thank everybody for showing up and coming out. This has been great. You guys are all amazing, and Sam, you've been amazing. I just really appreciate you coming in and really taking on this stock plan thing and bringing it out. It's I think it's been one of the things that helped grow the residential design group because it's added a lot of uh, a lot of help for people. And I hope your group grows just as quick as ours did, so that the two groups can work together. That's been great to be able to share things in both groups. Um, and we're going to be doing uh, we're probably going to be doing other webinars with Sam in the future, I'm sure. Sam's always willing to talk about this, so we may find specific things and ask Sam to talk or be a partner in it. So, other than that, I think we're good. I think everything's done. Everybody have a wonderful day. Sam, have a great day up there in Boston. Enjoy. Everybody have
Yeah.
a. What's the weather like up there, Sam?
It's been drizzly and overcast. You may have noticed several times in the presentation, I wheel my chair back towards the window.
Yeah,
We went from our first room here that had no heat at all to a room that has heat that doesn't turn off. So I'm going back and opening the window and closing the window. Right now, the window needs to be open again because it's really hot in here. Like,
I
come
get
on,
that.
Marriott, I think you could do a little better. But I'd rather have a room that was too warm with a window open than no heat at all.
Agreed.
So,
All right. So, everybody, thank you. Everyone, have a great day. Enjoy the weather wherever you're at, and we will see you again on the next webinar. I'll talk to you later.
bye.
Everybody, bye.